Sunday. Na, schon da?
Nein.
Dann machen wir noch nicht Recording an.
Waiting for Anna.
Just so you know where we are and what
Thank
we
you
are
so much.
talking about. And really important,
Mhm.
he's usually teaching monks and nuns. So if you have any question or you don't understand anything, please just grab the microphone and ask him, even in the middle of the session. That's fine.
Okay.
We are trying to like train him for like teaching Westerners because he's not used to this.
Mhm.
So sometimes he is using like,
Okay, listen.
so it's really no issue if you don't understand something or you have any questions, just take the micro and
Okay.
perfect.
Okay.
No translator yet.
No translator, no Anna. Is the time already?
Mhm.
Ah, yeah, but it's only 3. Come on. She's Spanish. We are in India. We usually never start on time because something goes wrong, either way on her side or on our side. No electricity, no Wi-Fi, no teacher late, translator late. But you said you're from Italy, so you're probably also not always on time, everyone in your country.
You are mine, no?
Yes.
Okay, so for you, you are probably every time.
Now we live for long enough that I'm not like this anymore, but
Anand came to
To
Translator.
did you put it on YouTube Live? Hey Anna, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
We have 2 new people here that haven't heard much of the 10 non-virtues. If Geshe could give a quick recap of the first 3 of the non-virtues, that would be great for them.
Okay. Lasso Geshe-la mi sabani tirinya sare ani konzo mikewa chugi kor konzo konyo samare. Ani ngazo mutine madongela kira ani robza ani lugimi kewa sum kikor konzola di teshikya tubayina pechela konzola pensare sa ta peche tordu china peche diksare tanda mamu sheko samare tingidu.
Oh, las, yeah, las. Oh, las, that's how much delay. Any, Talutin the go to Chawache, any Katajida, Dina Mugio Chu, one of my choose Rosary, the Inatana, Sawani lady, Kunichito, Konima, choose Jidona, Chedam, Mugio Chudi, Ligugone, Socho, but a Machibalimba, any Loborian assumed the Katanga, Chedan Rosary. 다 중간래 되어래 디니치래 이나양 단다 디 소초발라디 소초발라디 아니 가르지 가샤고래라디 아니 다 라리 타데 비심체 아샴바지 아니 지 센도게 삼베고니 스테바치라 아니 소초바시고래 딜미다 아니 던로다 키다 차다 디니 차버 요마르 가리나야 세초 마르세나 소초바시아가 o ti nipa di yungu res, o tini dochi soche bikor tini rechina.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who has joined us here in class and also here in Zoom. So today there are a few new people, and I'm going to do a brief overview of the three physical non-virtues. And the first of them is killing, taking the life of another sentient being. So this refers specifically to that, to taking the life of another sentient being.
All of the Tunisia, the Sochaba, Socho on the Tamba, and the two de should the Peggy Simchin so that Demberg Simchin in Batan, any Tilpa, any should somebody say goes and December Yobakanshi, any 30 Pagite, any 소소 맛이 가르도 그게 심진데 시송이나 딜까지는 소체 비가 아니 니바세 아니 뜻고래 제때는 봐 아니 소체 발파 아니 지 예원지나 제단다 가리는 도착 군이라니 소체 봐 이제 당기 군이라니 소체 봐 뜨무지 군이라니 소체 봐 소체 발라 만다와틴디 차버 만다와 두스.
When taking the life of another sentient being, this can be motivated by sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay. So when taking the life of another sentient being, this can be motivated by different afflictions. It can be motivated by ignorance. It can be motivated by attachment, and it can also be motivated by anger. And the karma of the full-blown karma of killing another sentient beings comes about if we take the life of someone else, and there is this conclusion where we feel, okay, we've done it, which means that if we die before the other person has died, or if we die before we're able to conclude the act of killing, then we do not accumulate a full-blown karma of killing.
Also, tini dochagoni ane sochobasia the candidate la di pena mazu shal sanduchini pegiti shal ani sudun doba dochachini and dig paru sochogandra tabatus any Karidana ani dochago dochago wange any ko sochoba di tingo des. Teni tashedango wanga sochoba the miseri javri javani mi control ani chigila karin drogoni na montunche. Ani controla ani bugel ani menda down do that any titri shuni seatela ani o karisig do shedango ni socho basi atini yungudus teni kari du tumuti goni socho basi at mashipi maripi wange kari yungresana pena ani socho ko marcho chero pena dinro shana ta yaksho ro soko puga marcho che adini do ati yang chi ko lam lokba de tongi hatini Jesundani ta ko so che tini tini choba pigore tini lamshadi tini o ti chini socho batavate ani tumu mashipi wange maripi wange socho basi de o tini rechi yungudus. Ana kemdu.
Oh, sorry. So if we look at three ways in which we can kill motivated by the three different afflictions would be, for example, if we take attachment, for example, in the case of eating meat, this would be normally driven by attachment, where we feel a certain craving or a certain attachment towards the meat itself, towards its flavor, and then we eat meat. So this is a way of how attachment drives killing. Another way that anger drives killing is, for example, when we get angry with someone, we get into a conflict with someone, and then we're in the midst of a conflict, and we end up killing the other person. So this is how anger can motivate killing. And then the way in which ignorance can motivate killing is, for example, when we take, for example, a certain spiritual path, and it says, and in the spiritual path, in order to please the gods, for example, we have to do some sort of sacrifice, animal sacrifice, right? So this is present in many religions. So this is a way in which ignorance drives killing.
Also, Tindirisha, the social crong order, Yawando, Tindidu, Tini Sochena, and in Nibachi candidate Yorelana, Tini Tachumbaum, or Tindistabina, and Lama that Tindi Tachimbo Sabina, Nibacha Yawata. The only Susola, Katahajan Chimbo, Pata Masavata with the young, Tintrani Aniko Dubacha Yobata. Tini Poge Nani Gejong, Chusin the Chidik, Gejong, Tamse, or Tindisabaina. 어디니마 아니 소초비기 니바치 총게 잡을 바람도 드니드니지니 드니 양 드니마 아니 고텔 투비 지 요덴치 중다 드니 잡을 드니 소치 그 두바치 중고 잡을 용고도
Then in terms of how severe the action of killing becomes, it depends on the objects of killing. For example, if we kill an arhat, one's teacher, one's parent, someone who practices virtue, and so on, then the action of killings becomes like specific, especially severe. Geshe la peche shembanyi denzo ane dende tinsabo peche drogoyo samare mado.
나서 아니 속초 바세리 양고 나랑처럼 빼잖아 속세다 하장 자친보 민가르초 전에다 속데 자치슈 이만나시 심체 셴바 참마 찍바리데 제당디 속체잖아 니바친보리 디카두이나 안티디 수소르 삼다니 에디 제 마고나 자니는 마체나 야고 요래 속초 마체고 고레시
And it's important to try to avoid, by all means, to take another sentient being's life, since just like we feel our life is valuable and precious, others similarly feel their life is the most valuable and precious thing they have. So we should try to avoid the action of killing as much as we can, by all means.
올라서 다 소체비 거든지 제니 니바데 마침발렘바시디 소소를 미션박 대샤네 짐바레 마침바시디 소소를 마체바레 소소를 마체 미션 그 잘라 우보 가렌데 지중 가렌데 지나 어때 소소를 도비하게 답시 전에 레나 안틸 가르치기레스나 디 소소가 라야 송산비 삼로 타투 계소나 델라 마침발렘바시 올만 마침발렘바 니바데 든지레샤스 니바 마침발렘바
The second non-virtuous physical action is the action of stealing, and here literally it's translated, we can translate it as to take that which has not been given. So stealing, an action always becomes stealing whenever we take something that has not been freely given to us, then that becomes stealing.
어디리셔티 잘라디디 마침발레 꾸마자디 삼바 인칭문지 소소르니 꾸모고아체 아니 미 소소고 미샤방가니 어쿠초디니 지니 코산디 키오르 체디노 디니 지니 꾸나양 꾸마차가 요바타 디니 아니 가르시나 꾸야기 잘라도 소소고 라발 따따레 마차나야 미샴바지글 사차니 사자포니 어땅 아랑게 레송 삼니 삼로 타투르 체니 게 레송데 땡키 송 삼도 삼로 계소나 아니 가르치르스나 딜라 마침발렘 바세고 테 무시 데렌도 고레스
Then in order to something in order for us to steal, we don't necessarily need to steal ourselves, directly, but we can ask someone else to steal something for us. And in the moment that someone else takes something from someone else that has not been freely given, we also accumulate the negativity of stealing.
Olazo tini ti samlo kulong de ne tu nyimo bachi chita nyimo ga wanga yungore mishibi wanga yungore tu de ne kari chiri tena do chak wanga susola chik chala da kari na tena chakwe wanga ani mi shamba chik suso chala chik kale kya mogwa chi ne ni mi shamba chik chala tu susola tobya tapshi che de ya dere de kuma jose tini jire to su ani nyimo da do chak wanga chigore.
And the main affliction that drives us to steal is attachment. Basically, it's craving and attachment towards a certain object that we do not have. And that's what mainly drives the act of stealing.
So tini majimba lembase na niba de tindi chiri shaati da ngondri china. Ta sumba lobar yimba diri se lobar yimba se atu ngondri china me shengi datu songi pime tang ani so tindi ani da mi shamba ge ani kimi tindi ina yimba chi tati choka le tsujani poli jana chikpare ti che ani nyetu so nyetu kata dungin chila ge tati sa dungin si tata labdun da madura kata so 남기 오다가 아니 녜두스 되어 녜두다 아니 지금 송이 게론 마티 게론 마치 바래 어떤디 또솔라 아니 어머사바 줘봐이나 아니 텔 로임 시그레티 카탄데 숨바데레스.
Then the third non-virtuous physical action is sexual misconduct. And here sexual misconduct refers to having a sexual relationship with someone who already has a partner, for example. And it can also be someone who is holding vows, such as a monastic, for example, or to have sexual conduct in an unsuitable location where it is near to an object of the three jewels, for example.
어디래지? dinita tilaya ta bachi loyim de la bayo de chong de tamba ani ma sing da mata sing mo da ani to solo lo bari yimba ta ani shenji chomala lo bari yimba ta ani gero mata lo bari yimba se loyo de la mandra wa sum de jo da diri jin ma so sha do se tine ani ta loyim gana ni duba chi shwe de ani gero ma ta chomba ro da ya gero ba ta chomba ina o tindi lo bari yimba ina ani niban cheshu ro de tinde so sha se o de niba chi jong cha bar chena.
So we can distinguish the different types of sexual misconduct according to the basis, so according to the object. So basically the person with whom we have a sexual relationship. And as I previously mentioned, one is to have sexual relationship with another person's partner, or to have a physical relationship with someone who is under the protection of someone else, or to have a sexual relationship with a monastic person. And out of all of them, perhaps the more severe action is the one of having a relationship with someone who has monastic vows.
So takasamasu zungale le de vina zungale techide zunze de tatagi to sumde karijina lujigoni se ota ngatu luda ngata yi sumganani lujigoni se oti duba magyo cheta sumdere shas tatini mandro de tanda ngatu talle de karir dosena ngak goni kani mashia ngak goni magyo de 아니 준 참아 추습 나케르 지역에는 담보 언니 준세 드레샤스 어디래 시바데.
So this completes the three non-virtuous physical actions. They are killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And now we're going to go to the four non-virtuous actions of speech. So the four verbal non-virtuous actions, and this begins with lying.
So tadi zun se de kandi che la gu do se de rali thate bi kansa de je de la rali thate bi kansa tadi kansa mi shamba chi se de mani samba de shen floor do ba shen la ching go ko ta la kar kar chen ne shen floor do bi samba 아니 디셈바 가르라 공두스네 통화라 만통하람 통지 요발라 메시안도 메 티니 마임발라 레시안도 어디 그수 하고신도 어딘디 라베지라 준라 고레시.
And here it says that lying, the basis of lying is a person other than oneself, and the thought is the motivation of wishing to say, for example, I saw such and such, when one did not see it with the intention to mislead someone. So here the basis is someone different than oneself, and basically the thought is, or the motivation is to say something which we know isn't true.
어데자 디삼 다 시다 삼바 딱그런데 저와지야지도 저와디 아니 가르르 공두세나다 저와디 링아 카랑기 루이당가 카랑기 아니 코 나바 파리지 떼니 아니 콜라 아니 로바테 유에시디 메시아 카니마 식 나강미나 이임바체 테마임바체 라바 다자니 메시 라바 파유니 메란도 어디니 체바이나야 어디 조이고니 티니 체바이나야 어디 아니 가르선에 좀 코나도 요레스.
Then there is the actual execution, the actual action of lying. And this is not necessarily achieved verbally. So we don't, in order to lie, we don't necessarily need to say, oh, he went that way, when we know that he went the other way. But it can also be said physically. So there is also cases of falsehood through physical gestures. So we might go with the hand if someone says, oh, do you have something? And you do have, but you say you don't. And then you go like that and you say, oh, no, I don't have it, without actually verbally saying it, but physically making a gesture and making the other person understand your message. This also becomes lying.
어데자 드니 양 셈바디 치보다네 뉴몬세야데 뉴몬네세 두숨 가라기 조바 타르티는 버르부터 고바 오세자 뉴몬네세야데 아니 삼루 고노레 뉴몬고 뉴몬데 뉴몬 두숨 가게 왕게 용고레 세티니 다 수다 다 치바치본도 차고 왕게 요 컨트롤 왕게 용레 삼루다 마다 티니 뉴몬비 왕게 아니 코 바기 미 칸사데 셈바데 부 로르도 비셈로데 고 티니 뉴몬 두숨게 조바치고 그래 닌 타투디 가리 체네스나 바로비 거기 그디 랍사디 다 잡사디가 바로 뭐 다이 요바치나 요 마리라 달레다 그요 마리라 두세 돈다 코소나 아니 같이리잖아 준지하던 타투바 차송레스 타투고 돈 테레스.
Then the affliction, it might be any of the three poisons. So as some of the previous actions, we can lie due to ignorance, or we can lie due to attachment, or we can lie due to anger. Their completion is for another to understand the meaning. So once someone else understands the message that you want to convey, the false message you want to convey, then the action is complete. And as we said before, the execution of this is not necessarily achieved verbally, because since there are also cases of falsehood through physical gestures.
어디래셨더니 준들라 파 예와치니 먼저와 예와치나 가르두세나 아니 무출라마 준세야 저래 무출라마 준세야 돼 가르레스나 소토라 연대 원시 아니 양 지금 지금 마타반 참모다 아니 다음에 봤더니 가리나 뜬디 요대 친구 마톱나 하고 있는데 톱송선에 어딘라다는 무출라마 라미 준세 그래 라마세 코나메 마톱바지 토바 어따비 준들라 띵아수 아니 게롱다 게출라 아니 증거 판바시야 지어라 어디 좀 판지하고 준들라 무출라미 증거로 어디 그 준지요래 준다 되니 젠 다신라 다신 하장 그 팬도 첨부줘야 그 준들이 지금 첨부줘야 그다 지금 뭐 약하다 약하이나리 롱바디니 축바셔야 그 준들이라고 당 어디 그 준신이 그 아니 딘디 그준 첨부세 딘디 셔요래 아니 샴바딘딜라 패밀리 친구시라 메데게가 패밀리 친구시라 루야 말인데 얘나 다고 요래라 요래베스 요 말에 셀랍자데 코타가다 준시에자르마도 패밀리시라 맹게 그딘디 준 참모시 어딘디 그든들라 마다와 숨거니 캬퍼칭두스.
Then here it differentiates three types of lying. The first is falsity leading to downfall, which is, for example, to pretend to have achieved, here it says superhuman qualities, that is high qualities when one has not. So here superhuman qualities, what it means is that, for example, if we're practicing the Dharma and we're practicing let's say, meditating on impermanence, we might lie to someone saying, oh, I've already realized subtle impermanence, or I've already realized emptiness, or I've developed clairvoyance, or I've developed single-pointed concentration. So these would be any examples of, for example, here lying, pretending to have achieved all these qualities of the path when in fact we have not. So this is one of the worst types of lies that we can do. Then the other two types are great falsehood that brings help or harm to oneself or others, and a slight lie that does not help or harm. So the middle one is a great falsehood. So let's say that we lie, it's a big lie basically, that can serve to help others, and it can also help to harm others. And then there are small lies that do not bring any sort of benefit or any sort of harm. Like, for example, sometimes they say, oh, are you going left or right? And you say left when in fact you're going right, for example, right? Like very, very small, subtle lies that do not benefit nor harm anyone.
also dindirisha tinita dunlama ani dungu niba chichondro chena ani sangila dun jin kwata ba sungure sangila chi yonde mudu yang sangila kyen chikjino jindu tindila sona sangi yonde tamche ta kyen tamche ta trewa indi tu tsoma dun chang dungu niba chisho de sangila kurata ba sete sonsha do tires tini lama soto lama chide lama otusola 아니 군대 제와라서 딘디 제바이나 준 제바이나 아니 까 니바 딘디 되게 상징 트리니티를 라마리 니바 치아다 되니 소소 파마라서 비 준침보 파마라서 받으소라 가르침보도 송고코타니 아니 준 제바이나 아니 니바 치아요레 저다 파는 지금 니바 시종치나 딘디 니바 샤버두스
Then it says that within the various types of falsehood or lying, deprecating the Buddha would be the worst types of lie, meaning to say, oh, the Buddha has no qualities, he's a liar, all of the things that he said are not true. So this would be examples of lying, deprecating the Buddha, and this would be the worst type of lie. Then the next one would be deceiving one's own teacher or guru. So also lying to one's guru would be one of the worst ones. And then lying to one's parents, that would be the third worst action.
올라서 어디에서다 준세야데 기행고 전다기 아까니마 돈다도 신이 차단지 딘도다리 뒤다 파시하고래 이나야 준세야데 다기 아니 류당 나당 이성근아니 나가고니 준세야데 나고니 고요고래라데 이나야 단다 나고니 치고 많이 받지 라박 다겸니 요래에서도 요마래라다 고유니 요마래라 야면에 메나이지 고유니 요래라서나 준차고래데 이나야 다 쭈쭈 망치와 되니 나고니 연구에 단다 준디 나고니 셰바래 라고 요래스
And just like we saw, lying is categorized within the 4 non-virtuous verbal actions. However, lying is not only verbal, like we saw, it can also be done through a physical gesture. So it can also be a physical non-virtuous actions. Like, for example, if someone says, oh, do you have this? And you go like, you wave your head side to side, like, oh, no, I don't have that. Or the other way around, right? You say, oh, are you going that way? And you say, oh, no, like with your hand, you wave your hand and you say, no, I'm not going that way, for example. This would be a physical way of lying as well. Although mainly we lie through our speech, but we can also lie through our physical gestures.
올라서 다 징크코드 데니라고 지르샤 다 데니 참아들이샤 참아셔야돼 참아생게데 간들지 루스나 제 바로 바스 바로 본tum바스 제 바저 심chen 바로 보니 강간니지 민로에나 민니지 고르 민니도 tum보요와 코라니 참부 tum보요 바지라 아니 군이 등보야도 수도 지금 차도다 되는 군이 막가니 군이 파 아니 예월도 비셈바 그 딘디지 거니 아니 조아데 가르치고 텔레쌈바 따티 파이월도 비셈바 디쌈니 그 조아카리 근다무다 제로 띠왕게 띠왕게 니 파다 삼로도 삼바데 가르데 다시 삼바 삼바데 가르데 니 그게 예월도 바지 니 콜롱데 뉴몬 바 아니 다겐도 샤시다 tumulaso 비게 아니 다디는 차도다 딘디 왕게 부야 지지데나 소소 어디네 뭐가 딘디 왕게 아니 그런 딘디 녀몽고 왕게 아니 다티부 바로 붙은 거와 하쇼바 니디가 디 하고니 아니 디고소나 아니 가르치는 차마 생게 차그레스.
Then the following non-virtuous verbal action is divisive speech. The basis of divisive speech is other people who are in a state of harmony. So two people or two groups of people that get along, that like each other. The thought, the intention is the desire to divide them, is the desire to separate them. Perhaps we feel envy or we feel jealousy or there is another affliction and we wish to divide, we wish to separate. We wish to create this harmony among these people. The execution is to actually say whatever we need to say in order to separate them and to create conflict between them. And the affliction is the three poisons, specifically hatred. So any of the three afflictions can be a motivator to divide someone else. And finally, the completion is the other party's understanding the meaning. So once we say something and the other person understands the meaning, that completes the action.
좋아요.
Alice.
Yeah, I think we should take time after every question, after every non-virtue for the questions. And one question is, what about when the intention of our lies is to protect someone? We sometimes have the white lies, we don't want to hurt them, so we are lying about it.
Isela ngazo nuchola da zun gigolara zun ngazo nuchola zun nakbodan zun karbo da wichi dus zun karbo karere lamna samsal ngazo mission la sobjo gyaya gi sok gyaya gi chedu ngazo zun gyagi do samsal la ani mission la ani pendo yonya gi chedu nebama yonya gi cheno zun sheya yorewa 준길래 자기 말에 네 준 쉐야디 펜도 연나야 마시나 약사레베 칸레레
알아서 디 딱히 가서 디 준라야가 디 거들라 셴 루어도 바죠 셴 봉어도 바 루어도 바 셴라 지 느끼와 지 펜모토비 삼바군니 라니 파쇼텔라 아니 리요아드 메아드 요레 랍구 요레 테마토 셴라 펜토야 위치데 딘랍샤나 준세 니바 요사 콘데 두고 마레세 파치 어디 니바 요 마레 딜람나 디고레스
When we talk about lie, always the motivation, like in order to become a negative action of lying, the motivation always has to be related with the thought of like the wish to harm the other person in some sort of way, to deceive the other person, to harm the other person, to confuse the other person in some sort of way. So if our motivation is to benefit someone, I don't think that not saying the truth becomes a negative action.
So we might have the intention to do well with our lying, but often we are not sure what action will give what result and if we're actually benefiting someone with it. So so at the same time we might lie that does not actually have the intended benefit, but also we are obfuscating the truth, which also seems like would result in worse results anyway.
Sorry, could you get closer to the microphone because I didn't hear you very clearly.
We might lie with a good intention, but that doesn't mean that result of the lying is actually good, because by lying we are obfuscating the truth, which has usually negative results. So even though we have good intentions, our actions by lying might not result in good results.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Geshe samsala ani Michela 펜도야기 데바요레 아니 준디 시나 페체 펜사레 간조 삼로디 요사라 이나야 ngazo chawa chila jebu karechungi yome ngazo nyeba yomara da shingi yomareba. Tisa nga zundi shena peche pensare di kunlo yenaya ane peche tama la nagi yosare di yonsigireba. Dedu kare kande chasare di lenyemba chasare chasamare.
올라서 티 지당이 전에 삼로라 파로폴 펜토거래 삼여 코노 약보 요창 아니 코좀 맞춰한지 고래 가서 진이야 괜찮이 코 파로폴라 너저고 요창 아니 코레 소소고 제샤데 두한테 차송래 송다 꿀롱이 전에 두아랑 요 말에데 이나야 소소고 다기 펜토사리 삼로디 삼로든 추르 단 두신 추르와래 송장 디왕 그 파게들 펜마토 네 루치 송다기 드시 바라테니 네 루치 요나 어디 패치티 다다 먹이래 레제나 먹이래 콩을 두고래 이나야 니바 침부 요 말에스 어딘지 잡아야거든.
Perhaps, well, the most important thing is motivation, right? But sometimes, even though we might not have a negative motivation, just like you said, we might wish to benefit someone. However, the result of our action ends up bringing some harm to the other person. I think in that case, we would accumulate some negative karma since the effect was not the one we wished for, even though we didn't have the motivation, the effect was not the one we wished for. And perhaps it's also because our discernment at the beginning, before we committed that action, was not quite right. We were confused in some sort of way, or we didn't have enough wisdom to be able to discern what type of result that action would give. Still, however, since the motivation was there was one to benefit the other, I think that the negativity we accumulate is not a very bad one.
Another question about lying is hiding information on purpose lying or not? Like, for example, I could have an information, but I don't want the other person to know about it for whatever reason, maybe to protect myself or whatever. Does that count as lying? Or can we, for example, instead of lying, just hide the information from the other person? Would that be okay?
Geshe-la, ngazo tsamsa-la, 아니, ngazo chikshena, 아니 미셸라 말랍나? pena ngazo hama ko dondo chena? Yamena mashe do chena? Tizuma chagirebe. pena ngazo ngaranzo la kyawya gideba yore, yamena ngazo shen la kyawya gideba yore. Ani di kunlon chene nga di ngarang kang hago ba di shen malabna? Tizuma chagirebe.
디 류당아 거니 가지고 시기 연애 시기 멘토도 전에 바로 디 류가 지금 달았더니 바로 그 파쇼디가 딱그 시기 매반다 삼네 삼로 계산나 아니 배치 준조하게 요래서 이나야 디 거기 지금 현라 지금 배디 삼로 나본다고 전에 아니 지금 제로 제라니 지 신기 요배람도 그 람도 메아체네 디니 지네 라바 이나 준조 그래서 이त니 니바용거래 때문에 양 지금 펜셈 거왕이나 아니 니바용거 말이지 단단 맞서 득발 로마도 수수데 가르치고 둘라나 군롱데 겐바지나 그게 너기에 셈바당 겐바이나 아니 고 가르친도 둘라나 득바 먹여는 두도 때문에 먹여는 두무도스.
Well, if the other person, if the other person wants to know some information that we know, but we don't want to tell them, we don't want them to know, and they ask us directly, and we pretend that we don't know, whether we stay silent or whether we make some sort of physical gesture to kind of make them understand that we don't know, even though we do, then that it's still lying. And if then the intention to hide away that information is a negative or harmful intention, then we do accumulate the negative karma. However, if the motivation is one of want to benefit, then we don't accumulate that negative karma. So like for an action to become, or for us to accumulate the negativity, it mainly depends on the motivation.
어때리셔 딱네 달디니 파트린 대신에 가르겸도 쇼잖아 상기게 제바존이 지금 득바 먹여와래 안데 겨와래 죽고래 득바래 죽 초고만을 라야돼 쭈쭈데 니바 치종고 왕게 파기들라 네 바당 니 어디니 죽고 연아티 체나 지금 말해 라이네 망치와 디니지니 가샤 득바리 뭐 저리전 지금 체나 지금 말해서 까와다 만 파쇼를 펜토고요나 펜토고요와 땡기인의 펜토고요나 요바이나 아니디 디왕게 코 때가라디 제고 때는 주고 그래서 산지가 좀 망치와 디레스.
So Buddha mainly when giving advice on how to conduct oneself was mainly in terms of motivation. So if we do something with the intention of benefiting someone, if this action is going to bring some benefit, or we believe, at least, we don't know the exact result, right? But if we believe this action was going to bring benefit, then that's okay. If we believe it's going to bring some harm, then it's not okay. This is like the main basis of division between a positive or a negative action.
Geshe said that so lying about the qualities of the Buddha and the qualities that the Buddha might have, this is the highest form of lying. But also that lying about one's own realizations is also the highest form of lying. So it has this to do with that lying about one's own realizations will give a wrong impression about what realization qualities actually lie, and just evaluating the Dharma. Can Geshe talk more about why the second one is also such a high form of lying?
Can you, the last part of the question, I didn't quite get it. Can you repeat it again?
So why is lying about one's own realization such a grave karmic mistake?
Okay. Lasso Geshe la tayin ane sum gi rigmin tawa sum ane mixe gi jigot sabo dan ducha res ane ngaranzo ane yenden tombo yododo chena de hachangi nyemba res yamena ngazo ngonshe da midaba dodo dus ngazo zunshe baina di mixe gi ducha res khare chenes ducha
티 가르치니 니바침보레라레.
long.
레레레 다 아니 소솔 지 연된 침보지 다 니네 매발라 연된 침보 요 람니 티 진시야 디가 밀은 고콜 침보 다얀다고 당 딘디 제치제 코노 딘디 왕가 용고요레세 손다 아니 디 가르치니 니바치야디 뭐 망보치다 니 딜레 고콜이나 고콜 탑 침보 다니가 pati ngoshiyo deni kyoran deni chagdo deni machine chigrig mari lana khop pati ani di chimbu ngokor chimbu shu ta tu resi deni wange mandros.
Well, I think it's probably due to the fact that if we lie about our qualities or about our realizations, it's definitely with the motivation of deceiving someone else. And if we say we have clairvoyance, and I know this, so you should do this and you shouldn't do that because I have clairvoyance and I can see the future or whatever, it's we deceive like it's a very heavy lie, and it's very deceitful for the other person, and we deceive many people through pretending we have qualities we do not.
As we are talking about intention and motivation, I guess one reason why we often lie is to protect ourselves from potential harm. Might not be true, might be imaginary, but I think we often lie to protect, for example, our reputation, what people think about us. But we don't have the intention to harm another person, but we still deceive them on purpose about ourselves. Where would that count in the intentions?
Geshe la ngazo zunshe kavla zo dan manchewa unlon di soso la kyabya gi chedu 소소라 너버마 영야기 제도 조어레 삼기도 나조 나조 군론디 하고나양 하마고나양 조조 소소 너버마 영야기 제도 옹아디 체마 손스 나디 ngati mes yamena ngati years ngati che yins ngazo zogo so ani nobama yaki chedures di ta jigo chabo di ducha shiborebes khanderes ta jundi
re ta ngaro chu song chob se 디 송쪽 원이 챙임바 송쪽 딱딱지 간 로고 요나 땅 비하고 요린 지게 요래데 양 알아 저랑 진진세야지 또 앞에 셴바 참말이 소소 싸워 쳔바도 싸워 소소나 지 디스마토 마요나 용 문지가 송고야지 미 셴바 티가 노게 잖아야 디 삼로 시라 땅 마투니 딘디 왕게 준도 고고 땅이 시디기 요나 tin jigi mi du se ti chi ti kai rang song chup je tang de tes ngar zin da rang chin zin shup chi wang ge ti chin zang ti ko tes jigi mi du te song da ti ko ma che wa ti zin ru du se te ma yin ba chen song chup chen ten chi chi ge ne woni so so ge chi ge to da lu da tin di la ji woni no chu chi mo ru ge ne song chup che wa yin na ni yang ko chen de ji ga ni gar si zin ru na ya ni ba chun chu ma do yo ma res.
well it depends. I mean, if the lie actually, I mean, if we have to lie in order to really protect our lives, like if our life is in danger or if our well-being is truly in danger, and we lie in order to truly protect ourselves, then that's okay. I mean, it doesn't become such a negative action. However, if you're right, most of the time it's due to self-cherishing, right? We are self-centered, and we consider ourselves more important than anybody else. So sometimes, in order to avoid getting into conflict with someone or being told off by someone, we try to kind of protect ourselves because we conceive ourselves more important than the other person. And even though my lie might be harmful in general, or even might be harmful in the long run, we decide to lie in order to avoid being told off or avoiding some sort of conflictive or negative or uncomfortable situation. In that case, that's not okay. That would become a negative action of lying.
I think for me, it's an overall thing with this idea of intentions, because when often we lie to ourselves. So if someone asks me, what's your intention? I never say my intention is to harm someone. And I often don't even think about the other person and what I'm doing. But he said, lying is only when we lie to another person, not when we lie to ourselves. But I think lying to ourselves about the effects of our behavior is one of the main issues. Also with stealing and all the other 10 non-virtues. When we talk about intention, I always say my intention is not to harm other people, because most of the time I don't even think about the other people. But I would guess myself that this is still not a good intention. It would still count as a negative intention. So maybe he can explain more about this.
Tichela miechena pena nga yena samsala ani nga dalega ducha dabuchi cheba yena samsala nga randi kunlon ducha nga kunlon ducha ye bangye nga rang la nga hago gi mindus ani mishen lagi nga la tiwa tamba yena o kiran karechne di che yins ani nga ta kiran nebe che gi chidu nga che mes ta di nga rangi nga rang di nga rangi lagi ine ngone china shibsablo tan samlo tana peche yang teds ani rang chenzi gi wangi jo yeza ani nga chibu pendo yo ya da shen pendo yong ma yong khan she ine zo nga rang pendo yo ya gi chedu che yins chesa nga rang la nga zuma shigi yes ani susu la zuma she ya di nga ducha zigi yes kain se na nga ranzu gi kunlong ducha kunlong nyemba yeba di ngonjin chema tubna ane kaduyina nga zo shenla no ke sigire bas cheza di korla chik deshe kya tubna
그래서 다티 콜라 투디 문에를 샹아서 삼로디 십 차고 참모지 마땅와 있나야 아니 가서 랑신진다 나르진세 빼슈 첨부 인데 담바 아니 망쳐지 지금 나랑 디코론 투메 삼야다 나랑 기체 노르메 삼야 딘디 망보지가 왕게 아니 용데가 파쇼부디 출 람니 딘디 저 딘디 체서 디 체는 딘 두가 지금 말아 두차시 지금도 알라니 라운디 kalakala samlu ko ya o ti yago cheme wa de samlu ko tindi mombu yung do so da tindi college che da de so chidang ge chani non tu shone zun do she ya na ya te zun da ran ro sari de ina ya 파로 볼에 지 삼신도 그 나포 제고 삼삼 그 군노 tindi chimbo yo bi wang 제바 나신 게 에콜에 니바트 chimbo yo 마레스 ina ya zun do so tin do gre ina ya chikkar gundu de namsha gyundeni dis ngarachu tinti kala tachen ro chene kande dugu ginden ge samshi te chetuba ina mani kale ani juma so kono de yan namta re tar do ya da kono yar do pento yo jires.
You're right that most of the time we're not aware of our explicit motivation because we are under a very heavy influence of the self-cherishing mind and the self-grasping mind. So most of the time we don't think that the motivation that makes us act is wrong in any way, or that we're confused in relation to our motivation in any way. But then someone else comes and says, oh, what you did isn't right because, it made me feel like that, or you brought such harm over me, or whatever. And in that case, it's a good opportunity to investigate our motivation and check and gradually we'll be able to recognize more and more clearly what our motivation actually is. And then eventually, I think this is going to help us to clean our motivation more and more and more until we can reach a state of being able to act from a pure motivation. But this is a gradual process that comes from analyzing and checking and the willingness to check and to analyze. However, sorry, I missed one thing. I missed one thing, which was Geshe said, it is very different, however, to act from an intentionally negative motivation. Okay, so I'm purposely going to lie in order to harm in some way, than to, mistake our motivation for a good one, due to self-cherishing. It's very different. And the first type of lie, where we intentionally lie, it's way more negative than to lie because we are not able to discern clearly our motivation at first.
To put it maybe in a sort of Western way, could we say that conscious negative actions are far worse than unconscious negative actions?
That's exactly what Geshe is saying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can he maybe say why lying has to be to other people? Because I think one of the main things we do is lying to ourselves. Why does that not create karma?
Okay. Geshe tanda zungi shi tso mishenrewa. Mishenre zungi shi. Karechine mishen yingore soso la zunshaya yorewa. Karechine de zunjogi yomares.
So la zen gandhi shake do and so yo ha ko tane yo mare la ne so yi chi do so zun in do yo na.
How can lying to ourselves become lying? Because, even though we do use the words at least we do say that in English, or I lie to myself. Can we actually, if we think about it, if you say, oh, I haven't got this, but you do have it, how can it become a lie? Because can you actually believe yourself if you tell yourself a lie?
Yes, I think we can, and we do it a lot.
Nye chena ngazo ngazo yiche chedugire nga sususula zun shena ngazo susula yiche chedugire ani ngone chena ngazo di mambu chigi yes.
스스 나래 디 기타 삼다초가 잡으러 요스바리 이나야 소소 매바 하고 신도 소소 요래신도 소소소 라비안 디 이치네다 디스 캔자로 라다 소소 제시나 소소소레 메나 요세 아이 요라야 소소소 이치바로 어때 디스 데 캔자 요래시 이나야 가시가시 삼다니 잡으러 요시기레스
I think it's a bit weird, like to think that knowing that, for example, you don't have something and you say to yourself, oh, but I do have it. That you actually believe yourself, that you actually trust yourself when you actually know that you don't. So I think this is a bit weird, but I guess it can happen.
I mean, it's also, we talk about in terms of afflictions a lot that we act in certain ways, but that we are so afflicted that we don't even see how stupid it is and how harmful it is. And in the same way that there's so much obscurations in our mind, that's on some level we might think that, oh, this and that is the case about myself or something or another, but on a deeper level, I actually do realize that this is not the case, but I only might realize after long reflection or if I'm not so hectic during the day or whatever. So it feels like you can sort of be aware of things on different levels, and then some of this awareness sometimes sort of gets shut off in favor of attachment or other things.
Peche ta kongi di karela idolana. Ani peche ta peche tenderes. Ngazo ngaranju sem ani nyomo mambo ta shuchimbo yeza. Tamsala ngazo nezu sebo 하고 투기 민두 통통이 민두라 안에 잠살라 ngazo nyomo wala yebe wangi ane chik chesare chawa chik chesares ane nga di yabo shenla pendo yayagi chedu chek yes samlo dende yesare yina ya ngone chena nga ranzo nyomo wangi nyomo wala yeza ane ngone chena kulon shemba ta kyablo la kulon shemba chik yere yina ya dedu ngazo ngonzi kulon kare yimba ngonzi tata chedugi mindus ngazo jelama도 하고 두기 민두스 잠살라스스 차와 쳇사네 아니 오다 페치디 아니 ngaran chipu samlo dane cheins gone chenanga mission pendo yoyagi chedu chemes jela hagoya stende yoreba pechedi ngaranzo kunlo ta nyomongi wola sonsa 아니 ngaranzo kunlo tansa chugidu yamena norgidu peche ta susu zunshaya peche zunshaya gidenta peche digina
디레샤 다 주데 가레즈나 가서 뇽모도 송고한테 손에 가서 따다리 레카 망쳐지 논주쇼고요레 덴바레 아니 레카데 제 차리 제레 신이 요 논주레샤 섬다 하고야 라서 바티니 몽부 용야 때 가서 뇽모도 송고한게 종샤지 딘디나 단단 네캅치를 캅투 네버 조거나 갈에 카보레 소투 마레스 이나양 ngaso ti sa hakoni phagel no kiano de jel pe matona so chi telen do cha chimbo de ti wang ge nyimo tu song ge chi so hakoni chi ajin do to so tambo kale chingona ani kale ni kidani lobjong mombo chi nyamnyam mombo ji sana ani ko di kono di cha ge di kono di re du samne chabata ta ji chi thoya kale yungore temde yungore.
Yes, I think at first it's difficult to ascertain one's own clearly ascertain one's own motivation. And sometimes we might think, or we might even want to believe that we're acting in a certain way, but we are unconscious of our precise motivation. And this is normal at the beginning. However, in this case, for now, what we must try to avoid is to harm someone else, like knowing that it's a harmful action intentionally, consciously, through either attachment or hate or whatever other affliction. And then slowly, as we think of our motivation, as we become conscious we analyze our motivation, we were able to become more conscious of our motivation. And through our own experience, we'll be able to discern clearly what our exact motivation is, whether it is a virtuous motivation or a non-virtuous motivation.
So in that sense, self-lying is not as bad as lying to others because usually it is not with a intention and therefore it doesn't really incur any heavy karma. But when we lie to others, it's usually with bad intention or more consciously, I suppose.
Dende yina geshe la so la zun sheya di shen zun sheya le peche dende ducha yin samare kain sena dugyu ngaranzo la ane sem trube wangi so zun dawo sheya yore ba ine shen la zun shewe kabla ane kunlon yobe tone ha kon shindu nga zu sun shegidu dende yin songsa ane shen la zun sheya di dugares dende rebes.
re da tini goni chabar chena chia yo sa re ngoni re kaisna zu de running mi shambala ani semba kono dukya gawang no sem gawang gi ani chi yod mere mea de yore se chi gani ko dushi gyurni she sha da che sha jila se o zu tini se de tini lagudos.
Yes, I think perhaps we can see a difference, so we can like set a difference between lying to oneself and lying to others in these terms, in the fact that whenever we lie to someone, intentionally or consciously lie to someone, it's generally speaking with a harmful motivation, and then this obviously becomes a more negative action.
라서 아니 다 처음에 티츠 텔 아니 당초 참조 제시하는 산이 연구 제용세 간생가 데스 추디시발 거기 맹간치 레고에 대치로고도 아니 대 참조 처제스 엔사말 자시딜레요세.
Okay, so the time is over. If you don't have any more questions, or even if you do, we can leave them for tomorrow, because Geshe needs to go now quickly to the hospital. So we leave it here today, and tomorrow we'll continue where we left it off. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye bye.
Na, sunny day,